Chapter 14. Holly. Holly rubbed her forehead as she stared at her bank statement. None of it made sense. She prided herself on balancing her checkbook every month, both her personal one and the one for the business. But this month, there were charges she hadn't accounted for. Had she just been so busy with the wedding that she'd forgotten to document them? It didn't seem likely, but she didn't have another answer. She scrolled back to the top and focused on all the charges this time instead of just the ones she'd forgotten to mark. And that's when she saw it. 2 gas charges in the same week. Courage was a small town, and Holly didn't leave it much. She rarely had to fill up more than once a month with her economical car. So why were there 2 charges so close together? It had to be a mistake with the bank. Then a second withdrawal caught her eye. She never withdrew money more than once a month. At the start of every month, she would take out her fun money, $200 that she could spend each month guilt-free. Everything else was paid with a card or check so she could track it. Usually the money went to manicures or hair appointments, but occasionally coffee and books won out. But she never pulled it out more than once. Yet there were 2 withdrawals this month, and the second one was for way more than $200. Had she had to pay cash for anything related to the wedding? She didn't think so. Holly pulled out her phone and dialed the bank. It had to be some sort of operator error. When she reached a human on the other end, she explained her situation, but the woman insisted that the charges were not a mistake and had been made with her card. "It's not possible. I only withdrew money once." "Do you still have the card?" the woman asked. Holly opened her purse and fished out the wallet. "Yes, the card is inside. It hasn't been stolen." "Is there any possibility you gave someone permission to use the card and simply forgot?" the woman asked. Her tone was polite, but it irritated Holly nonetheless. "No, I did not give anyone my card to purchase anything. I don't know who would even have access to it." Though she realized she did leave her purse in the office while she worked. She didn't want to think it was possible, but an employee could have come in, taken it, used it, and returned it without her noticing most days. But that made no sense because not only did she screen her employees, but none of them would know her PIN code. "Well, we do have a camera on the ATM, the woman said. "You can come see the videotape and see if it helps." Clearly, the woman thought she was crazy, but that was exactly what Holly planned to do. "I'll be right there." 10 minutes later, she walked into the bank and toward the customer service desk the woman on the phone had informed her to check in at. After explaining her situation, the woman nodded and led the way to a private office. "Mr. Jensen, this is Ms. Bingman who called earlier. She's here to see the ATM video."
"Oh, yes. Come on in."
Mr. Jensen was an older man with silver hair and a sharp nose. He extended a hand to shake Holly's and then pointed to one of the seats across his desk.
"We did pull up the video of the withdrawals using your card. One is definitely of you, but the other?"
He shrugged.
"Perhaps you can help us figure out who it is."
He turned his screen so Holly could see the video and then hit play. A barrage of emotions flooded her as she watched the transaction occur on the screen. Shock, denial, anger, sadness. They came so quickly that she could barely keep up with them all.
"I can tell from your face that you recognize this person."
Holly nodded. "But I didn't give him permission to use my card." She couldn't remember even giving him her passcode. But then she remembered a day about a month ago when they'd stopped at the ATM on the way home so she could deposit some money. He'd been driving, so she'd given him the code so she didn't have to go inside. She'd never imagined something like this could happen.
"If he had access to your card, I'm afraid there is little we can do. but you could probably press charges with the police.
Thank you. I'll think about it. Holly left the bank in a daze. How could she have been so wrong about him? She felt stupid and used. Why would he steal from her after everything she'd done for him? Money. Everything boiled down to money. He'd feigned not having access to any, even asking for a job when he decided to stay in town, and she'd given him one. She had paid him a salary and let him keep tips, while he'd been taking her cards and stealing her money. And she'd paid for everything for the wedding. The wedding? What on earth was she going to do about that? She couldn't marry him now, but she was going to lose all of the deposit money she'd put down. Maybe if she explained what happened, they would have pity on her and at least give her some of it back. Or maybe... Her eyes fell to the ring on her finger. Was it even real? It certainly sparkled like it was, but Holly hadn't had it appraised. Perhaps it was time to do that. If it was real, then maybe she could sell it to recoup some of the costs. But if it wasn't, it was one more piece she would have in her arsenal when she decided to confront Frederick. Hot tears burned in her eyes as she drove toward the jeweler's, and she blinked to keep them at bay. She would not cry now, not until after she gave Frederick a piece of her mind. Then she could curl up with a pint of ice cream and let the salty tears fall. Normally, she didn't like being ruled by emotions, but she let the anger burning inside her grow into a hot rage. It kept the tears at bay and gave her the strength to do what was needed to see just how far this deception went. The jewelry shop was quiet when she entered, and Holly breathed a small sigh of relief. She was a roller coaster of emotions, and she was afraid she might break down or have an outburst if too many people even looked at her right now. She took a deep breath and hoped for a normal voice as she approached the older man who was cleaning jewelry behind the counter. "Hi, I'm hoping you can help me. This is probably going to sound silly, but I was given a ring, and I was hoping you could tell me about the diamond." She held the ring out to him, hoping he wouldn't ask for more information.
"Sure, I can take a quick look."
He took the ring and put on a pair of glasses with some weird black attachment. Then he held the ring up and turned it left and right.
Well, the first thing I can tell you is that this isn't a real diamond."
He lifted the glasses and handed the ring back.
"I hope it wasn't considered a family heirloom or anything, because it isn't worth much, sadly."
Holly tried to hide her disappointment, though deep down, she'd suspected. She'd paid for so much, believing his excuse that he'd been saving money to buy her a ring. But she'd been duped, and it stung. "No, I don't think so. Thank you so much." She didn't bother to put the ring on her finger as she left. The engagement was over. She fired off a text to Frederick, telling him she needed to see him, and then headed to the office to begin the arduous task of calling all the vendors for the wedding and canceling them. Holly pulled into the back parking lot when she arrived to avoid seeing any of her staff. She knew they would ask her what was wrong, and she couldn't answer at the moment. The phone calls, as much as she was dreading them, had to come first. With a sigh, she pulled up the name and number of the first vendor and picked up the phone. Her fingers felt heavy and clunky as she punched in the buttons. "Hi, this is Holly Bingman, and I need to cancel a booking." When the calls were finished, Holly dropped her head into her hands. The tedious work was done, and thankfully many of the vendors were acquaintances, who not only offered their condolences, but part of her deposit back as well when she gave them an abbreviated explanation for the cancellations. Still, she could feel her body wanting to succumb to the sadness, but it wasn't time yet, not until after she kicked Frederick to the curb. She should check her phone to see if he'd responded to her message, but she couldn't bring herself to care enough to. A knock sounded at the office door, and she glanced up expecting to see Frederick. Instead, she saw the concerned look of her assistant manager, Ashley Carmichael. Holly's stomach clenched. If Ashley was wanting to talk to her, it couldn't be good. Ashley had shown up just after Mary Beth's wedding a few years ago. She was smart, talented, and had taken a lot of the restaurant load off Holly's shoulders, which allowed her to have more evenings free and also pick up more catering jobs. Ashley had also been helping balance the books for the past several months. Holly had no intention of retiring yet, but when she did, she hoped to leave the restaurant in Ashley's very capable hands. "What's wrong?" Holly could tell it was more bad news, but there was no use avoiding the question. Besides, bad things tended to happen in threes. She was due at least 2 more hits before things started looking up again. Ashley sighed and sat in the chair across from her. "Nothing good." She opened up the laptop she'd been carrying. "It's already been a pretty crappy day," Holly said, massaging the worry lines that were etching deep creases in her forehead. "I'm not sure it could get much worse." Ashley's lifted brow said otherwise. "So, I've been going over the point-of-sale information, and we've got a problem." "What kind of problem?" The POS software was designed to catch inconsistencies that would normally go undetected. Gone were the days when employees pocketed a few dollars from the registers. Now it was much easier for them to take extra money, and without the proper tracking software, thefts would go virtually undetected. "There have been a few inconsistencies over the last few months. The first one is the increase in voided items." "Voided items?" Holly asked, leaning in to look at the screen. "We hardly ever have people send food back." It wasn't that she never had food sent back to the kitchen, but it happened so rarely that the waitstaff usually had to ask for help on voiding the food. "Yeah, we don't, and we've never had many voided items on this report. Until recently, and they're all from the same server. In addition, I've received a few calls from people claiming they were charged more than their receipt showed." Holly sighed. She knew where this was going, and while she was afraid to ask the question, it hung in the air between them like a dirty secret. "You suspect theft, don't you?" "There's only one thing that has changed in the last few months, and I'm sorry, but I don't think it's an accident." "No, I don't either. I just got back from the bank and found he's been using my cards without my knowledge." "Oh, Holly, I'm so sorry." Holly dropped her head into her hands. "I just can't believe I was so stupid." "Hey." Ashley leaned across the desk and placed a hand on Holly's arm. "You don't have to feel stupid. He's charming, and he convinced us all. There was no way you could have known, but at least you're finding out before marrying him." "Well, not everyone. Tiffany and Mary Beth had concerns about him, but I dismissed them. And then Dougie?" Her eyes widened, and her hand flew to her mouth. "Oh my gosh, I was so horrible to Dougie when he told me Frederick was cheating. But what if that's true too?" "It will be okay. I don't know Dougie well, but it's pretty obvious he cares about you. I'm sure he will forgive you, but you need to take care of yourself first. Get Frederick out of your life and out of your business." Holly nodded. "I know. I've already texted him that we need to talk. I can't believe how much time I've wasted. I thought I was a better judge of people." Her phone vibrated beside her, and she lifted it to see a text from Frederick.
"Sorry, I got hung up. Be there soon."
Holly snorted and shook her head. Yeah, hung up. That was one way to phrase stealing from her and carousing with another woman. "That him?" Ashley asked, nodding at the phone. "Who else? Evidently he got hung up." Even the words felt dirty in her mouth. I'm so sorry. Look, we can come back from this. He got away with a few grand, but we can bounce back better and stronger than ever. And we can press charges if you want. I can get enough evidence to take to the police. Holly shook her head. No, I don't want to involve the police if we don't have to. I'll send him on his way and chalk this up to an expensive learning experience. A very expensive one. Ashley nodded and left the office, and Holly's anger re-energized as she waited for Frederick to arrive. Thankfully, she had the video from the ATM on her phone and the reports on Ashley's laptop, so even if he tried to deny anything, she would have evidence.
Sorry, babe,
Frederick said when he entered her office a half hour later.
I had meetings with that company I've been trying to work with.
He leaned in to kiss her, and Holly pulled back. She wondered if there was an actual company or if that too was a ruse.
What's wrong?
He asked, finally noticing her stony demeanor. Oh, I don't know. Maybe the fact that you've been stealing from me and this business? There was a split second of fear in his eyes, and then it was gone. He really was a convincing actor.
What are you talking about, Holly? I haven't stolen anything from you or the business. You know I want you to succeed.
Holly folded her arms across her chest. Really? Then what do you call using my debit card without permission to buy gas? Frederick shook his head and reached for her again.
You gave me permission. I would never use your card without asking.
Holly gaped at him. He acted as if he truly believed it, but there was no way she would have given him her card. No, I didn't. But not only that, you withdrew money from my account. Don't even try to deny it because I saw you on video. He paused for a second, and she could almost see his wheels turning, trying to come up with a way to spin this.
They must have gotten our PINs mixed up. You know I opened an account at the same bank. Maybe I grabbed your card by mistake, and they didn't catch that I was using the PIN for my account.
Wow, you have some nerve. She could not believe how calm and confident he sounded. He was either a really good liar or a pathological one. That's not the way ATMs work, Frederick. How stupid do you think I am?
I don't think you're stupid at all, but I would never do that to you.
I saw you on video, Frederick. She threw her hands up in exasperation. I recorded it so you could see it too. Here, look. She played the video for him and waited to see how he would try to spin his mug on camera, stealing money from her account. His face paled slightly, and then he looked up at her.
They doctored the video, Holly. That's the only explanation.
She blinked at him, sure she had heard him wrong. Was he really asking her not to believe her own eyes? No one doctored the video, Frederick. I watched it on the cameras myself. He shook his head and reached for her.
I'm telling you, it's a mistake.
A mistake? Like the kinds happening to my books right now? The kinds of mistakes where you void items that were paid for and pocket the difference? Or the kind where you adjust the tip amount on people's receipts to pocket the difference? He pulled back his shoulders.
What are you talking about? I would never do that.
Except that you have. I have evidence of that too. Did you not realize that the software keeps track of the server's number? Or that people would call when their receipts didn't match? Did you even work at a restaurant? Or has this whole thing been a lie? As if realizing he was losing the argument, Frederick turned defensive.
Who are you going to believe, Holly? Me or some video?
Holly shook her head. Forget a pathological liar. He was either crazy or delusional. Maybe both. She couldn't believe she had fallen for his charm. It had all been an act. It's over, Frederick. She dug the ring out of her pocket and placed it on the desk, not even wanting to touch his palm as she gave it back. I want you out of my office and out of my life." His eyes dropped to the ring and then lifted back to hers.
Holly, come on. It's not what you think.
It's exactly what I think. I took the ring to a jeweler today, Frederick. It's not even real. What were you hoping for here? Money? I don't have any. It's all tied up in the restaurant, which you should understand since you swindled a few grand from me.
I don't want your money. I have my own, and as soon as this deal with the company goes through—
Stop! Holly couldn't listen to any more lies. She was angry and hurt and tired. Just stop. I don't even care why you did it. I just want you gone. But he wasn't going easily.
Holly.
She forced a hard edge into her voice. Now, Frederick, or I call the cops. He stared at her a moment, as if pondering whether he should continue to argue. But finally he sighed and picked up the ring.
You're wrong about this, Holly.
Goodbye, Frederick. She didn't know how he could continue to act like he'd done nothing wrong when she'd presented him with the evidence, but it was clear he was living in his own reality. When he left, she shut her office door and sank down in her chair. So many emotions battled in her head. She was sad that it was over, that she wasn't getting married after all, that she still wouldn't be starting a family anytime soon. She was angry that she'd fallen for his charm and pushed her friends away when they saw through it and tried to warn her. She was embarrassed that her friends had seen what she couldn't, and that she'd spent so much money she really didn't have. That hadn't been an exaggeration. Most of her money was tied up in the business. But mostly, she was afraid. She was afraid that she would never find love and never get the chance to be a mother like Mary Beth. Holly never talked about it, but it was what she wanted more than anything. The tears finally broke through the dam she'd constructed, and she let them fall. Her shoulders shook, and her stomach clenched on itself, but she didn't try to stop it. She just let the emotions out, and when the tears were gone, she did the only thing she knew to do. She picked up the phone and called her best friend. "Mary Beth, can I come over?"